I parked the yellow bike in its spot yesterday after my ride and came out this morning, and boy did it smell like gas in here, and it spewed fuel all over the floor. These petcocks are prone to leaking, these vacuum petcocks. This particular bike I run on prime. I don't even have it hooked up to vacuum. So right now it should be off. It should not be flowing fuel, but it's done this before. It's coming out of this carburetor and it wipes out the paint on the upper case, unfortunately. Which also means the float valve in this carburetor isn't working properly. But I don't typically worry about that as long as I can get the fuel shut off. One good fix for the leaky fuel petcock is to push the bike outside and just leave it parked out here and let the fuel drain. But the price of gas now, I can't do that. I'll go broke. Actually, the solution on this bike, I've always run an auxiliary shutoff valve. One of these cheap, call it a Briggs & Stratton unit. But they wear out. Each time I want to go for a ride, I have to reach up through here with the fuel tank on, grab that thing, turn the fuel petcock, or this valve, and it gets harder and harder as time goes on. You can see that I thought I had it off and I didn't. You can see, there we go. Now it's off. So it probably would have worked, but I'm just going to replace it. What am I going to replace it with? Another cheap shutoff valve. When I get around to it, I'm going to do a fuel petcock mod to these two, maybe even more fuel petcocks. I've done it on one. It involves using some epoxy, which has lasted well over a year on the bike that I did that on with no problems whatsoever. There we go, all fixed. See how easy this one is to turn? It'll be like that for maybe 10 times, then it'll start tightening up, and then after a year or two it'll get extremely difficult and I'll have to replace it again if I don't do that fuel petcock mod, which I really need to do for this bike. So this fuel tank is sitting here in, I think that's called run, and it's been leaking. It shouldn't be flowing any fuel right now, and just for fun, like I said, I run this thing on prime, which, woo, does that. Since we have the fuel tank off, take a look at the coolant level, make sure it looks pretty good. Actually, everything looks pretty good in here. Got a nice fuse block mod on this bike, actually on several of my bikes. Uses these blade fuses. And we have an extra fuse in there for the R6 fan. I'll take this opportunity to make sure this spring mod on the oil line is holding up all right, and it looks good too. I just want to make sure there's no kinks, otherwise we would have a big problem in there. Let's give it a test start. After the poor thing was relegated to the gravel pit here, make sure it's not locked up. Nope, choke. Choke. Try it with no choke. Now I'll try it actually turning the fuel on. No choke. Choke again. Nope. Smells like gas. Wonder why. I just pulled the plugs out of this thing. This one looks pretty good. Yeah, it might be running a little bit rich, but better that than lean, right? The left spark plug's a little bit dirtier. I'm going to clean it a little bit. I'm going to let the bike air out for a while and come back and try to start it again. This thing's been sitting for about 2 hours with the plugs out. I tried to check for spark, but it's so bright out here. I hope that the plugs are still good and not fouled. Come on, baby. Not happy. I just put an old set of non-resistor plugs in here. Checked the one on this side and it was definitely sparking. Right now, no choke. Is that all it's going to do? Much better. Just had to open the throttle up. Strange for this bike. Wow, it's smoky around here. Must be a fire. Check it out. This is how hard it is to turn this thing. It's extremely hard. Garbage.